Ho ho ho! Merry Christmas! Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Harebrained Games. This is our Christmas edition, and I'm doing a very concise one this year. Last year I did different videos for different types of games, from family to light to medium to cat to heavy. It's a different year. I have different things going on. I'm just going to do one list, and I'm going to hope that it fits with all of the needs. Now, we're going to go over some games of this year that are not like William Shatner talks. We're actually going to go over games from 2019 and 2020. I kept them recent because I've already done, people that want to see like sort of all-time games, you can always go back and look at the videos that I did before. This one's going to be a little bit more modern. So the games I'm going to talk to you about are 2019 to 2020. I made sure that they're at least available. I think with rare exception, they're readily available. There's not a ton of overlap with, say, last year's more extensive breakdowns for that reason. And so with the idea that we're covering the new titles, let's just get into it. Let's start with top 5 family games of 2019-2020, and the first one that comes to mind, if you want some nice entertainment in a family style, doesn't take too much to teach, it's The Crew. The Crew is a game that's it's probably the funnest little legacy game you'll play short of Pandemic. It has 50 missions, and they're all a little bit more complex as you go on. It's a great play curve for, like getting people ramped in, leveling them up, so to speak. So check out The Crew. Fort, from the makers of Root. Yeah, that was an interesting game, Root, and there's actually a digital version of it. But Fort is a much more simplified, kinder, gentler, more pleasant kind of affair where you're building a fort, and the artwork is devilishly charming, Willie Beamish, old school character, cartoon kind of style. So check it out. This game has been around for several years, but I still love it, and I still think it's an excellent way to start a game, and that's LLAMA. LLAMA is a game that I will play quite often with people because it takes 30 seconds to teach and probably 60 seconds to play. Okay, maybe a little more than that. But you get the idea. It's an easy game to teach. It's not complex, but I still find it entertaining, even though I'm getting more stodgy and I like my war games kind of attitude. Next is the Princess Bride Adventure Book game. This is one that came out of nowhere. It's available at Target. It is truly a recreation of the game, but not in such a fashion that you're just basically going through the motions and playing it. It really does let you go chapter by chapter through some of the iconic locations with the iconic scenes and the iconic stuff going on, and it is great. I highly recommend the Princess Bride Adventure Book game for anyone who has any adoration for the movie itself. KLASK. If you have a chance to play KLASK, it is a blast. It is not a thinker's game, it is a dexterity game. It is air hockey with magnets, and I have had the time of my life. You can pull this out, you can play this in minutes. There are entire tournaments in Europe for this game, and kind of clever. And I always have, as a personal favorite, a perennial favorite, Splendor. You can get people going on Splendor. It's an interesting and simplified engine building game. It's not gonna tear your mind open with microbiotic intelligence requirements, but it's going to at least keep you entertained. My wife has played hundreds of games of Splendor with her friends. So that's it for the family games. Now we're gonna move up to light games. These are ones that you probably couldn't just throw at a table right away, and after turkey, which I hope you all had good turkey, and just play. These are ones that are just lighter fare, but still take a little bit of investment. It's one where you set the dinner dishes aside and you sit down and everybody learns and plays this game. Wingspan. Wingspan is the start of a wonderful relationship that I have with the game. I play it every year. I play it several times a year, but we always play it on New Year's Eve. There's a reason for that. It's because as birding goes, it's a kind of a phenomenon. But Wingspan is one that will find Very endearing art. And anyone who loves nature will look at it and I think find something to love in the art and then find something to love in the gameplay. Forgotten Waters. If you want the ultimate pirate's tale, this is an app-driven game. Yeah, it's an app-driven game where you have have your laptop or a tablet or something around, and you use that, and it drives this game. This game is really clever. You have your pirates. Each pirate has missions. There's a real-time aspect where you're trying to like find out where you're supposed to put your pirates in position to do things. Are you exploring? Are you keeping enemies at bay? Are you avoiding? It's just if you want like a ragtag pirate team feel, this is the game for you. So it's cooperative. So everyone, mostly, and they're pirates. So you're going to go on. You're going to enjoy that aspect of it if you like pirate games at all. It's my favorite pirate narrative game ever. Not my favorite pirate game. There are many pirate games. I love pirate games. Segue to the next game. This came out of nowhere and was a surprise for me in 2020. It's a game called Pan Am. Now, at its surface, it looks kind of like a Ticket to Ride, building routes, etc. It's not. It is a multi-layered experience like no other, really. Yes, you're building routes, but you're building routes so that they can be consumed by the big behemoth that is Pan Am. You're doing a lot of work trying to create a scenario by which you, in the end, make the most, like get the most out of Pan Am before things just go crazy. So it has got one of the oddest premises. It's true, very true to the spirit of sort of the Pan Am vibe. So get that one, another Target available special. Get that one if you want something clever. Couple little rules things that'll be a little bit weird for people who are used to kind of a Ticket to Ride, but it won't take long to get through it. And then War Chest. War Chest was a game. It has been out for a bit, but War Chest is the ultimate fun chess game for me because every single chess piece has something unusual it does. You don't have to play the same game twice. It's simple. It's a simple little battle game. It's not chess. I didn't mean to dissuade you in that regard, but you are placing your units on a map. They make moves. You have opportunities. It's really tight from the very first turn on. You have a tight game. Well worth it. And then Back to the Future. In the same way that Princess Bride, the adventure book game, really brought home and just encapsulated that Princess Bride humor and experience, Back to the Future does the same thing by offering a really clever cooperative game where you are trying to put all the pieces together to save the day. You've got your DeLoreans, you've got your Biff, you've got your love triangle, you've got your disappearing images. You have everything in this game, so give that one a shot if you like that. And finally, perennial favorite, King of Tokyo. I'm always okay bringing out King of Tokyo. Easy to teach, fun to learn. Who doesn't like little monsters jumping into Tokyo and out? All right, now let's get to medium games. Not medium rare, not well done, medium games. These are ones that don't require hours and hours of poring over the manual, but they are still ones that do have some investment that you will have beyond just lighter. These are ones you'd want to prepare for, or maybe have a 4-day over Thanksgiving extravaganza gaming session if you could, but we can't. First off, Gloomhaven, Jaws of the Lion. Now I have Gloomhaven, the original game. Came in a trailer case of content. Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion simplifies this for an audience of people who might not have the desire to go put out 10,000 pieces of content. It does sort of the similar storybook approach where it flips the book's the map, you use the map and the book and it goes together. Check it out. If you like sort of role-playing games and you don't mind that it's simpler than not and you haven't gotten sick of Gloomhaven, the big game, give it a shot. Pretty cool. Next is Pandemic Legacy Season 0. Now, Pandemic Legacy is a game where you are historically cooperatively trying to stop disease from running rampant across the globe. Yeah, that's a foreign concept, isn't it? Pandemic Legacy 0, Season 0, is a different take because it enters into the Cold War. It's a prequel to the other two games that came out over recent years. If you like the original Pandemics, you're probably going to like this one. If you don't, you still may find something to like. It is clever. It's well done. The story kind of is. The story's great. It's an excellent way for them to conclude the trilogy. And then we have a little game that came out of nowhere. There's a lot of games this year that came out of nowhere. YUKON Airways. Yukon Airways is about flying across the upper interior western regions of Canada in the Yukon. And you have your little plane, and you have your missions, and you have your passengers, and you have to get them to places, and you're trying to do it as efficiently as possible. You upgrade your plane, you upgrade, you make your risks and rewards, your choices. It's just amazing. It is a labor of love for anyone who's ever visited that region, which I have, which is why it's also one of my heart. Bright, colorful, like Northern Lights kind of feel artwork. It is. Do it. Civilization: A New Dawn. Now, Civilization games generally are ones that take hours and hours and hours, and you're always wanting to play one turn more. That's the big shtick. One more turn, one more turn, one more turn. Civilization: New Dawn is different. It goes orthogonally in a different direction to try to recreate somewhat Civilization, but it's not trying to recreate it on a one-to-one basis. Like, you start with your settler, you build over time, you build your armies, you build your ships, whatever. This has more of it's an odd, almost, there's some abstraction here that changes a lot of what you do. But now that the Terra Incognita expansion is available, it is finally what I consider a full-featured game. I hesitated to review it in the past because even though it was a great little game, I felt it was a skeleton of what it could have been. There were just not enough civilizations. There just wasn't enough content for me to say, this is wow-inducing. Now with Terra Incognita expansion, it is to me the complete package of simplified civilization building. It remains close to, but not quite as good as Clash of Cultures, a game out of print that I absolutely adored, but that is coming back sometime next year likely. But I do actually think this one's worth your time. It's simple enough that you can teach it to people that would otherwise maybe struggle with the full Civilization game. And finally, the top 5 medium games. It was reprinted this year, but there is a game called Awkward Guests. If you've ever played Clue, you know that there is a place in most people's hearts for deduction games. Captain Moron did it in the Observatorium with a pixie stick, that kind of thing. Awkward Guests is different. Awkward Guests makes the decision and the fact-finding fun. Clue is not fun for me. I will play it as a courtesy. In a game you play as a courtesy, you know it's not going to be high on your list. Awkward Guest is way high on my list because it brings into play logic decision choices that you're bereft of in games like Clue or even some of the others, Mystery of the Abbey, etc. You really do have to think hard. You have to think about all the different ways things could go wrong. Basically, someone's been killed. It's your job to find out who did it, who's lying, who's not. And the beauty of it is that it's not just a game with 9 different things that could be combined to decide something. So you have hundreds of custom scenarios, and that's one of the drawbacks. It does take time to compile the scenario. But once you do, you have hundreds of combinations, actually unlimited if you get the app, of combinations of ways that you can find the killer, who did it, how did they do it, did they make it through, where did they go. It's really clever. It is the game I always hoped to find as another evolution of Clue. So Awkward Guests, and even Solo actually has you could play it solo. It's totally fine. It's a different vibe, but I actually have caught myself playing it on, like, it's midnight, I just want something entertaining for an hour before I hit the hay. Awkward Guests. And finally, perennial favorite, I always like Blood Rage. Sorry. I mean, it's just, at what point you just like, when you just want to throw your guys at the wind and say, live or die, I get something out of it. It's still easy enough to teach, it doesn't take long, and it's just a Valkyrian bloodbath. So check that one out. It's an oldie but goodie. That one might not actually be very well in print, but Blood Rage! Blood Rage! Alright, finally we're on top 5 heavy games. Now, heavy games are ones that take an investment. You're not going to pull these out for anyone other than other gamers. These are deep and meaty and mighty and magically crunchy. So let's just get rolling. Imperial Juggler is a game where the French and British jugglers go at it. Ooh, who will win? Anyway, Imperial Struggle is okay. The French and the British go at it, juggling different nations and places around the globe. You're actually this titanic collision of these two great superpowers at the time. This is the sequel to Twilight Struggle, my favorite game of all time, which is the Cold War. You got the Americans, you got Russia, and they're going at it. This is broaden that horizon, take it out. You can check out my review. This is a vast expansion of what Twilight Struggle had, and it is mighty, and I love it. Tank Duel, I continue to like this. This is not new this year, it was new last year, but Tank Duel is a blast. Imagine not having a map to drive your tanks over and still feeling like you just were in the middle of a crazy battlefield, and you'll have Tank Duel in mind. It's great. There's more expansions and extensions coming out on the horizon, so give that one a shot and try it out, Tank Duel. The next one, another surprise hit. This is the year of surprises. Most were bad. These were good. TAWANTINSUYU. TAWANTINSUYU is a crunchy, meaty, mathematically delicious game from David Chertsey that really evolves kind of the Stone Age feel of a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit of improvement here, growing. So many things thrown into the box, and yet it all works out in one nice meal. Finally, The Mission. This is a solo game that recreates from the crucifixion to the right before the Crusades of Christianity. It is meant to be a historical travel through time of all the different phases of Christendom. This is different than your average, say, Commissioned or Kings of Israel, Wisdom of Solomon, in that it's not a pandemic clone with a biblical facelift. This is a really, really in-depth, really well-researched, really reverent, and really honest recreation of the history of Christendom. So that's another one. And finally, Nemesis. Nemesis is relatively new to my collection, but it is already making its way up the chain. If you want aliens, the suspense, the thrill, the terror, the action, the darkness, the what's around the corner, Nemesis is it. And you can play it with many different characters. You can play it probably best, like 2, 3, 4 player best. Solo was okay, a little vacuous, but then space usually is. And perennial favorite, if you wanted something meaty mighty, just go with Mage Knight. It just continues to give. It is trench warfare for wizards. You gotta think deep on this one. I once played a game of Mage Knight that took 7.5 hours. Yeah. Anyway, now let's switch over to themes. I'm going to give you some examples by theme. These aren't just medium, levy, and height, medium, light, and heavy. These are by theme. I'm going to give you top 5 Christmas-themed games. First, Elf. Just grab Elf and play it. It's literally from Target at $17.99. You can play it in 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes. It's great. Grab some Nog, grab Cousin Eddie, and have some fun. Next one is Home Alone. Home Alone is a little bit different of a game. Maybe it's a tad notch up in complexity to Elf, but imagine playing Netrunner, where someone's guarding the house and someone's trying to enter the house. Imagine playing the most clever, whimsical kid version of Netrunner you could possibly do, and that's what you've got. And then Christmas Lights, a card game. This is another one that came out recently that I think was kind of underrated, and I wish it wasn't. It's actually really good, and I hope that it starts to gain traction. 12 Days has been around for a while as well, and it is another fun little quick game that you can play in a Christmas fair. And finally, Die Hard, because it is a Christmas movie. Alright, next we have top sports games. Now I'm going to recommend a game called Football Highlights 2052. The presentation is rough. My review of it was not kind in the presentation department, but the gameplay itself is rock solid. And once you play a game or two and have it under your belt, you're going to like this game. It is a really tension-filled highlight reel of a football game. And then Rallyman GT. Just play it. If you love racing, you're going to like it. Now let's go into top licensed games that you might be able to convince someone to play during the holidays. We're gonna go back to the Future, Back in Time again. That one's great. Hit of the year for me. Go with it. And Star Wars Rebellion. If you can find this, especially with the expansion pack, you literally can recreate Star Wars in a box in 4 hours. You won't play it often, but you'll always want to. Top co-op games. Let's continue with Horrified. It continues to be the best co-op game, I think, that I've played. And even at the new ones, even though I've enjoyed a lot of the cooperative new ones, this one continues to be one of my staples. And then Nemesis, of course, which I aforementioned as co-op games go. That one's good, although that one's not actually co-op. I should be honest about that one. Everyone has a motive. We all have our interests, and on a personal level, it isn't exactly co-op. It's semi-co-op. Top animal-themed games. Isle of Cats. Let's go with that. I didn't find a good place for that, and not really a cat fan anyway, so why not? But this one's a little meatier than it looked like. It's not something you could just go, hey, just make the little kitties go in the box, or put these kittens in a blender. No, this one has a lot of thinking Tetris-like meatiness to it. So Jaws is another great game where you have one person playing the shark and others are playing not the shark. And all of them, as true to form, do need a bigger boat. And Wizard Kittens. Wizard Kittens is different than Isle of Cats in that it is easier to play. You have kittens who are wizards who are trying to win. And it is a fun, frolicky experience, but not for two. You need at least 3 or 4 to really make it feel good. Top unique games. These are games that are just quirky and weird. We're going to go with Pan Am. Pan Am's vibe and the way you play it is just plain weird, but makes sense after you've played it. It fits the theme, it fits the mold, but it is a game that has things going on that are just frankly not like other games. And then we have Trapper Keeper. Trapper Keeper is a game that really recreates the old peachy days when you're in high school and you're getting notes from your favorite friends, etc. Cheap and entertaining and decent. So, and finally, Pendulum. Pendulum is a Eurogame real-time game. It is not, sorry about that, it is not like any other game. It is literally a real-time game. You have timers to make your Eurogame moves. I didn't do a review of it yet. I actually did one. I just haven't published it yet because I keep swinging back and forth on how I feel about it. No lie, really. Anyway, filler games. Games that you could play quickly that still have some interest. Blitzkrieg World War II in 20 minutes. No, I mean, absolutely the go-to one that I would go to, and you can check my review of it here somewhere deep in the archives. And Jetpack Joyride. Jetpack Joyride is another game where you're literally making a line of Tetris pieces to try to get up and down and through the different precarious little caverns and whatever. Another quiet hit from Prospero Hall. And finally, let's get into solo games. What solo games are interesting? Check the Mission. I already mentioned that above. It is a quintessential, never going to get rid of it, one-player game about the historical ebbs and flows of Christendom from the time of Christ until the First Crusades. Castle Itter is... well, historically, it turns out it's not the first, but it's the first well-known battle in which Germans and Americans and a host of other influences all fought against the SS troops in a castle right at the end of World War II, right as the war was ending. And it's a fascinating historical thing, and the game itself fascinatingly and smoothly recreates it. So Castle Itter. Proving Grounds. This is one that, when it first shipped, it shipped with a set of cards that, like monsters, like people to fight against, that was the wrong side. They were the wrong difficulty. They were extremely difficult. And so I waited a month and ended up getting the actual cards that they meant to ship with it, and then it became a better game. It's a real-time app-driven game as well, where you're basically in an arena and you're fighting these creatures. I think it's clever. I don't think it has a lot of lasting power because you're just going into an arena and fighting stuff. It would have been nice if there'd been a little bit more of a, hey, here's a journey you're going on, but it is what it is. Check it out. And finally, top digital board games. Games that came out on digital platforms that do full justice to the game. And Game of Thrones just came out. The Game of Thrones board game, the AI is okay, but if you've always gone, oh, if only I could get 6 people, 7 people to play Game of Thrones, I just never can, now you can. Wingspan, yes, Wingspan came out on digital too, and it is phenomenal. It is polished, it is well created, it is stable, I love it to death, check it out. And finally, Root. The Root just transcends just simply converting a board game to an app. It transcends it. It really, someone just said, we're going to make this rock and hit it out of the park, and they did. So anyway, I hope this was useful to you. Once again, all these games, for the most part, should be available for people during this Christmas season, because I, for one, love getting games. And I'm sure and I hope that you love getting games too. So thank you all, and we'll see you next time on Harebrained Games.